Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to our Matchbook horse racing special. It's a national hunt special, a jump season special, whatever you want to call it. Kipco British Champions Day is done. That's the flat action done. And now everyone that throughout the summer has been going, this flat stuff is rubbish. Let's bring back the jumps, the proper racing. They can be happy because the jumps is very much back. And we're kicking off this weekend, actually, with the Cheltenham Showcase meeting, where Matchbook sponsor a good few races there, 4 races in total. You might be listening back to this after it, but it's still going to be relevant because we've got plenty of horses that are going to be flung your way. We've got 3 horses each, then a trainer jockey to follow. We've put them into categories of hurdlers, of chasers, and of dark horses as well, something a little bit under the radar. And then Rixie went for an obvious one, but we'll come to that. That is Rixie. You can see or hear very shortly. Declan Rix is back with us. Donn McClean's here as well, and Sam Turner. How are we all, Don? It feels fantastic to get back stuck into the jumps, but I feel like there's lots of unfinished business because it was Cheltenham and out really at the back end of last year. We didn't get any of the spring festivals.
That was it. Yeah, exactly, Tom. You're kind of looking for horses from the Cheltenham Festival that might go on and be effective at Punchestown or Fairyhouse or Aintree or Perth or Ayr, and yeah, none of that happened. So even in preparation for this, looking back on Cheltenham notes and seeing notes that you'd taken on horses that might have been horses to look out for at the spring festivals or the later spring festivals, and yeah, all null and void. But hopefully they'll be all back now for this season. It's a hell of a season ahead.
Has it, Declan, made it harder in any way for you that we didn't get to finish up where we were last season because some horses didn't quite get the chance to show perhaps what they've been campaigned towards for much of the season with regards to Aintree and Punchestown?
Yeah, definitely. There is always that element there. Kind of every year we always kind of see horses go from Cheltenham and be good at Cheltenham and maybe just be a little bit raw there, but then go to Aintree and Punchestown and kind of, become that little bit better. I suppose the most obvious one there would probably be Spirit Son in my own mind. He was just too raw to do himself justice in the Supreme, and then he went to Aintree and he was an absolute monster. So yeah, there is definitely that feeling there. But look, what can we do? Everyone's in the same boat, kind of pundits, analysts, whatever you want to call it. So, but yeah, look, I'm looking forward to it. It's that time of year now. I think this time of year is probably the most exciting time of the year because you've still got some good flat action going, and you've got the jump starting. So yeah, looking forward to it all.
Yeah, and all the horses to follow we're going to put up are still at this stage good and not utter shite, which is great. So it's all ahead of us. I think the 2 mile chase division was the one we missed out so badly on that 3-way go with Chac and Poursoir, with Defi, with Altior, with the Queen Mother Champion Chase. And then we completely missed out because we never got the chance to see what they might have done were they to meet up at Punchestown or Aintree. So, and I'm actually going to put a horse up who's going to enter that division, which now as I'm talking about it seems like a crazy thing to do because it is such a strong division. But we do have an element, Sam, of unfinished business when it comes to a lot of these divisions.
Yeah, and it was disappointing for a lot of horses that wouldn't necessarily find Cheltenham their most comfortable track, so they ran there, but with the promise perhaps of running in 2 or 3 weeks' time on better ground at Aintree on a speed track, and then perhaps winding up, as the lads say, at Punchestown, gaining very valuable experience as well. So obviously there was 1 or 2 horses that you sort of hit their light under a bushel, so to speak, going into Cheltenham, and were looking to be prepared for a spring campaign. They then didn't get the required experience. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on, really. Novice chasers, novice hurdlers that weren't overburdened during their novice season, and how they step up this year. But look, I think we've got a raft of really interesting horses to talk about, Tom. So, looking forward to hearing what the lads have to say about these.
Absolutely. And you touch on something there which leads into it. There was a rule change as well, which meant that a horse like McFabulous, he got to run as a novice in the Persian War. And probably because of what happened last season, he is now going to be campaigned as a staying hurdler as opposed to a novice chaser. So that's worth keeping your eye on and just making sure that any of those horses that you think might make it into a certain type are going to be campaigned as such. Because I fell into that McFabulous trap and he was going to be my novice chaser to follow. But he's going to be a hurdler now. So there you go. Let's get stuck into the hurdlers then. We'll start with those. Our hurdlers to follow. We've got one each, as I've said. They can be novices or they can be out and out hurdlers. I know that Sam is going to kick off as far as a hurdler to follow with a horse who was very, very good last year. And he's one of those that I suppose could have gone over fences. But as far as you're concerned, he's going to stick over hurdles, Sam.
I believe so, Tom. Yeah, the horse in question. Now, I could really do with Steve Jones for the French pronunciation here, so you'll have to excuse me. This is very much a low French, but Saint-Ouen, the county hurdle winner, he's sort of the hurdler that I'm putting most of my faith in this year. I think he looks an astonishing prospect, really. I mean, he went into the back of the county hurdle on just a couple of previous starts and was very, very well backed as well going into the race. And no doubt that was off the back of a very exhilarating piece of work he did in the week leading up to the race. So, whilst the county hurdle isn't a race that you can particularly fancy one strongly, and I think there was a fair amount of confidence behind his chance going into the race. And just watching the race again as well, the way that he moved through the race for an inexperienced hurdler, the way that he sort of shot clear of a really good yardstick in Aramon, the stablemate, who won his next two and unfortunately has been ruled out for the rest of the season through injury. Just really stamped that as a high-class, I thought it's just a high-class performance, really, for such an inexperienced horse in a race of that nature. So I'd already got him on my mind, really. And the way that he's sort of been campaigned this year as well, he was sort of got ready early because he's done very well in the summer. Went and won, his comeback race in real style, beating Tigris River very comfortably. Didn't hurdle as proficiently as you would have hoped, but I don't see that being a major problem, given that he managed to jump round Cheltenham in a county hurdle and hurdled pretty fluently and efficiently on that occasion. And you look at that county hurdle form, it's just working out brilliantly. Aramon, as I say, has won twice. The other stablemate, Build Me Up Buttercup, has won a couple. Beat the Judges, won a couple. Tiger Voice, Christopher Wood, Packen's Rock, and Eldorado Allen as well, all down the field. They've all gone in since. And it just looks a really, really strong renewal. Run a good time. Circuit time was pretty good. And just the one thing this horse has, he's got electric pace. He's got a change of gear, a turn of foot, and that stamps the potentially very smart horses from just the good hurdlers. So I'm very pleased to be with him at double figure odds for the county for the champion hurdle off the back of that county hurdle performance and his reappearance run.
Saint-Ouen, who was part of a brilliant McManus team last year, and I think one of the only handicap debutants in the last however long to win a county hurdle. I think they were about 0 from 75 coming into it, but he was a good thing in the race. Incidentally, this applies obviously to Donn and Rixie now, but everyone, when somebody's put up a horse, by all means, if you want to jump in with anything about the division or the specific horse, if anyone makes your ears prick up, then please do. And I'll just put a question to you guys, if I can, off the back of that. How do you see, Declan, the champion hurdle division? I know we came in last year off the back of it looking very strong and then us getting a bit of a surprise in the preceding champion hurdle, but Epatante, she looked a very good winner last year. How strong do you think that division is this year?
Look, I think if you're gonna talk ratings, I don't think it's really that strong at all. Sharjah, I think, didn't he top their classifications at the end of the season? He's probably, in my mind, he's probably a 160 hurdler, maybe a tiny little bit better. There's no 170 odd hurdler in here at the moment. And that's in some ways that's maybe going to be the case for the champion hurdle picture going forward, because so many of these good horses that used to come off the flat are now staying on the flat and having international campaigns. So this just could be the new norm and having kind of, if you can say it, run-of-the-mill champion hurdler. So, I think everyone's still got to beat Epatante. I think Sharjah is still massively overpriced. Saint Roy is, the new kid on the block. So it's competitive, I think, which is the main thing, which is the thing we all want really when it comes to Cheltenham. So I think Sam's horse will need to improve, but look, he's in the right care, isn't he, to go that way. So yeah, open division really.
Don, you can kick off with your horse now. Who is your hurdler to follow this year and why?
Yeah, just finally on Saint-Ouen, I think it's a good shout by Saint-Ouen. Look, he's the fact that he's made his seasonal debut this year means that he's not as far under the radar as maybe he was at the start of the season. But he was seriously impressive in winning the Tipperary race, and the time wasn't great, but they didn't go a great pace. Jingle was in the race, and you kind of thought that he'd be the one to go and set a fast pace, and he did set a pace, but it wasn't that fast a pace. And I think the fact that Sandoval was able to quicken up as well as he did off a relatively sedate pace, I think, and he, Sam says he's only a 5-year-old. He's got bundles of progression or potential to improve, and obviously he's got course and distance, well, more or less course and distance form as well at the Cheltenham Festival. So yeah, he was on my short list as opposed to my specific one. Yeah.
Classical Dream. Anyone, lads, remember that horse?
Mm.
Yeah. What's just a write off? He's still rated 160.
He's going to go over fences, isn't he? He looks a proper. Well, I don't know. I assume he's always looked a chaser. To be fair, he's real horse with scope. He's quite leggy, bit of a nutter. He could probably do with a fence slowing him down, to be honest. So, yeah, look, I suppose that's kind of it'd be nice now. Kind of, we're getting more jumps racing. We can chat to more trainers on the track and just see where all these horses are going, whether they're staying hurdling or going over fences. But if Classical Dream is over his injury, obviously, because we shouldn't forget he was ruled out for the second half of the season through injury. I'd be surprised if they don't go over fences this year if all is not well.
I think at the end of his hurling year, Declan, didn't Ruby want to go over fences and Willie wanted to stay hurling? They had a bit of a debate over which they would do. So yeah.
Do you know what was really, if in the Racing TV horses to follow list, which I've nicked one of mine off, incidentally, thank you, Dan Barber, and Sam's put Saint Roi up on that. But Ruby's, his horse to follow, he said you often get a horse who was a bit disappointed the previous year that can then come and romp up in a handicap. Now, he didn't say handicap hurdle or handicap chase, but he put up Classical Dream, which I thought was interesting. Bit of a head scratcher in some ways, because you wouldn't necessarily associate him going down that route with his rating, but I thought it was interesting. Anyway, we digress. Don, your horse, your hurdler, and why?
Grand Annual, maybe. Utrecht. Utrecht's my hurdler. No, he's not going to be a champion hurdler. I just think he's a horse who's a fair way under the radar because we haven't seen him since December last year, and he's still a novice hurdler. Actually, it's kind of strange to think that he is a novice hurdler because he's running 2 bumpers. He's won his 2 bumpers. He ran in a maiden hurdle at Cork in November and got just beaten by Front View, who's a good horse himself. I think Front View went off as favourite for the Martin Pipe hurdle. I'm disappointed, but he's a decent horse. He had John Snow behind him in third, and John Snow at the time was a really highly talked of horse and is a good horse. But then when Utrecht went to that bumper in December at Navan, just the turn of foot that he showed, it was just a seriously impressive turn of pace to come away from Fantasio Delaine. It's a bumper that it's produced massive horses in the past. Sam Crow won it, Don Cossack won it. I think Envoy Allen might have won it the previous year as well. So it's a bumper that is a really good pointer to the future. And just having a look for betting for the Supreme Novices Hurdle, he's a 40 to 1 shot, which I thought was pretty big. Now maybe I don't know what the thinking is. Maybe he could go further, but just the pace that he showed in winning that bumper at Navan, you think he's a 2-miler. He's with Joseph O'Brien. He's a Jigginstown house horse, and he's very likely raced. He's only run 3 times in total, including just once over hurdles. So even though he doesn't have much experience over hurdles, he'll have more than most novices, most maiden hurdlers going novice hurdling. And the fact that he's only running 1 race over hurdles, but he would have had plenty of schooling in order to allow him run over hurdles last season. Like second season novices, and he's a pure second. He's not a second season hurdler. He's a second season novice. He's actually a novice because he hasn't won over hurdles yet. So he'll have an experience edge in most of his rivals. And yeah, I just haven't seen much about him in dispatches about horses. Joseph O'Brien did give him a mention in a stable tour, but I just think he's a classy horse. He's got pace and got potential to improve again, and he just doesn't seem to be on many people's radar. So yeah, I just think he's a horse that he's not going to be a champion hurdler, but he could be a horse for some of those really good novice hurdles, especially over 2 miles, given his pace.
That was what I was going to ask you next, whether you think he is a 2-mile type, because he's got a fair bit of stamina in parts of his pedigree as well. I was just looking at it there, but you think initially 2 miles? Well,
he could step up and trip, and it may be that the Ballymore is the race for him, and pace is no liability to carry into any race. I just, exactly that at the start of last season, or when he started racing and he ran that in his first maiden hurdle, I was thinking that he could step up and trip, but I was surprised by the the speed that he showed at Navan in that hurdle. And maybe that is a race. It has been won by like Sam Grove, Don Cossack. Their horse have stepped up and trip. Obviously, Don Cossack's a Gold Cup winner, so maybe it is a race that does foster horses who tend to step up and trip then. But I just thought that the injection of pace that he showed when Tom Hamilton went for him, and he just picked up and came away from his rivals, and they were good rivals as well. So I'd say, Joseph Bryan will do the right thing with him, but I could see him maybe kicking off over 2 miles and seeing where he goes from there, with the option maybe to step up and trip later on.
That is Joseph O'Brien's Utrecht in the Gigginstown colours. Any Sam or Declan have anything to add on that?
No, not a lot really. I mean, obviously the stable are just going to have a raft of real good quality horses. I think I put a dark horse up from the yard, and it's incredible, isn't it, Don, how in the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, he's supposed to have been cutting back his national hunt team as well. I think the team that he's going to have probably only 40 or 50 horses, but they are going to be absolutely top draw potential, really, aren't they?
It is remarkable that he can do what he's done on the flat, Joseph O'Brien, and then also have the team that he has and do what he's done in the national hunt sphere as well. I mean, I know it's more like Jessica Harrington's obviously doing it the other way around, going from national hunt to flat, and she's obviously top notch on the flat now as well, and has been for the last few years. But like, it's just shows you the work ethic of these people to be able to go 12 months of the year. Because if you have horses at that level in both codes, you're flat out the whole year. Maybe that's a good thing for staff and everything. It's a good thing, but it's some performance to be able to maintain that level of performance among those horses in both codes, I think.
Yeah.
And wasn't Aidan O'Brien's annual holiday every year a trip to the Breeders' Cup for work? That was kind of his holiday. So he's cut from the same cloth, I think, Joseph. So. And even and maybe his national hunt team, obviously there's not going to be as many horses in there. That's probably a good thing, because these horses are probably going to get, not that they weren't getting the care and attention, but now, there's going to be more focus on the individual horses, which could be a good thing in terms of schooling and whatnot. So, another interesting part of the season ahead.
He's about 26 as well, which is just utterly ridiculous. 14 years younger than Declan.
50.
I can move on to my horse, who's not dissimilar to Utrecht in some ways. My horse, who is my herder to follow, is Farouk Dalene, who also carries the same colours, who's going to go into the novice hurdle division. First of all, his likely target, well, it's going to be a middle distance novice hurdle. In the recent stable tour on a few different sites, actually, that Gordon Elliott's done, there was one on the Post, there was one on the races. He said that he was probably going to develop into a Ballymore horse. Obviously, Gordon's had some pretty good recent winners of said contest. He fits very much into the chaser in the making mould, but most of them do, don't they? He was very good when winning at Down Royal. I thought I'd read the comments afterwards. This was back on Boxing Day last year, where Jamie Codd said he won a point-to-point last year for Donica Doyle. His work has been incredible at home. We expected to win. He's done that. He's another monster for the Gigginstown machine. They buy some beautiful young horses, and he's another one to add to the collection. Now, Jamie Codd was also very sweet on another bumper horse last year, Ballyadam, who carries the Cheveley Park colours. And I wonder how he'll be campaigned, because he's probably going to get sort of first port of call with regards to where they aim him, because I think he is the one, if you like, the novice hurdler stepping up. But I wonder if he's a bit more of an out-and-out two-miler. This horse looks a little bit more of a staying horse. I liked the fact that at Naas, subsequently, he was 7-4 favourite that day, but he actually had to battle under Jamie Codd. He had to work. I don't mind seeing that with these young horses. And then they talked about the possibility of him going to the champion bumper if it came up soft. It was obviously a relatively quick turnaround. I think just under 3 weeks between that. He didn't show up there. I wonder where we would have seen him. You'd imagine in a Punchestown bumper, but of course didn't get the chance to. So he's obvious enough in that he's clearly very highly regarded. He's been sent off favourite on both of his bumper starts. And I was just interested that Gordon nominated the Ballymore, given his recent record in that, for Farouk Dalene. It could be on a hiding to nothing with a horse like this, because you have so many possibilities for these big yards when they come into this year, and sometimes it looks very different come the end of the season with regards to what you thought they might be, and something can come out the woodwork. But we know that he's very good because he's won both his bumper starts, and the fact that they've nominated the Ballymore for him, I quite liked that. Yes, he probably wants a bit of dig underfoot, but he's a National Hunt horse, so that shouldn't worry you unduly. And he's an exciting one, I thought, who was just a little bit away from the obvious. By all means, anyone come back at me with Farouk Daleen.
That's your project, that is, Tom. But you're right, he looks a strong stare, and I'm a big fan of horses that win at Naas or Navan, to be honest. I think, you know, those tracks take a bit of getting. They take a certain aptitude and attitude as well from winners there. So the fact that he's managed to win there shows that, you know, that's all rock solid and bomb-proof, really.
Don, can I just ask you on bumper horses last year? The fact that he didn't go to the Champion Bumper, are you looking at the Champion Bumper as good as ever for a year? For example, the previous year's Champion Bumper has turned out to be exceptionally strong. Or do you think it was a slightly strange year, given the fact that it was a compressed year? And also, we had at the start of the year, I think we had bad ground at one point. We didn't get a chance to see too many horses initially. So are you looking at the Champion Bumper as good as ever, or do you take it with a little bit of caution?
No, I think it was a good race. Yeah, look, I think Champion Bumper is a top class race until you learn differently. I think your default position that it's top class, and appreciating Fernie Hollow, they were very, very good. And Fernie Hollow, I know he was obviously 10 or 12 to 1 on the day, but he was a very highly regarded horse. He just disappointed a couple of times in the run up to Cheltenham. He was just a bit keen, and Paul Townend gave him a lovely ride at Cheltenham. Just settled him in behind, got him lovely settled, and then made his way from there. Sky Lane, who finished 5th, came out and was really impressive in winning a maiden hurdle there during the week. So no, I think obviously we'll gather evidence as the season progresses, but I think it's a high class race. There's no reason to think it wasn't a high class race. The kind of the right, I mean, I don't like the right horses came to the fore, but they did, and it looked like a strong race beforehand. It looked like a strong race afterwards. Any limited evidence that we have of it so far is positive. So yeah, I think it's safe enough to work on the basis that it was obviously a top class race.
Declan, your hurdler, sir.
Yeah, did my internet drop out there by any chance?
You're back. You're all good.
Yeah,
I assumed you had to go and get flight BA 035 in.
No. Well, I think the internet was that bad. The plane crashed into the house, to be honest. But, yeah, my hurdler to follow this year is going to be a novice hurdler of Nicky Henderson's, that 5-year-old owned by JP McManus, and that's going to be Flinter Sacra, who's obviously a full brother to the great Sprinter Sacra. And I have a funny feeling that kind of title is going to follow him around for the rest of his career, at least in his early days. But, there's real suspicion here that this horse could be a proper horse in his own right. Obviously, the chances of him scaling the heights of what his brother did are, probably less than 1% or whatever. But I think he is going to be a good horse. He only ran twice last year at Newbury, at Kempton. He had a lovely introduction at Newbury on ground that was probably far too slow for him, to be honest. He travelled really powerfully under Barry Geraghty. It looked like they couldn't really go quick enough for him, but in the final stages, he was just too green and too raw to do himself justice. But thankfully, Barry, being the horseman and the good jockey that he is, or was, that we should say now, he looked after him. And then his second start and his final start, he went to Kempton. I thought, look, he as the market suggests, he was entitled to win. But what I really liked about it is he gave the runner-up, he gave him a very big head start, and he still managed to pick him up easily. Again, it was a case of him going through the race stronger. They didn't go as strong in this race as they went at Newbury the last day. And he just looks like a horse who will thrive off a stronger gallop to me. And, those are I think the good horses, they do tend to travel well. Looks like they can't go fast enough for him. And I think this guy is going to be the same. Look, he got to the front and he was absolutely clueless again, and he was very raw. But look, it's very evident that the engine is there. So look, I'm looking forward to him. I was just doing a little bit of digging on him, just in terms of his pedigree and what. Obviously, he's a full brother to Sprinter Sacra, but the guy who bought him is a guy called Hubert Barb. He bought him for 125,000 as a 2-year-old. And this guy, I've just been doing a little bit of digging. Barb, he's got a strong association with the Pie team over the years. And he's found horses like Gloria Victus, Hors Loire, Lady Cricket, Valeromix. He's got, it looks like this guy's got a really good eye for a horse, but he's also bought, I think he also bought Deafy Desai for JP McManus, who obviously went to Philip Hobbs, and hasn't done too badly, should I say. So I just think, in terms of form, in terms of pedigree, in terms of everything we've seen on the track, who he's trained by, who he's owned by, the men who bought him, I think everything is just really in line for this horse to have a big season. And you look, one of my favorite things about the National Hunt season is anti-post betting for Cheltenham. I love it. I think this guy is probably going to be an anti-post play for me in the Supreme Novices Hurdle market. So that's where I'm going. I'm quite excited by this horse, and I just thought Nicky Henderson did a stable tour with us at theraces.com, and I'll just read you here what Nicky's quote was. He said, "He's a full brother to Sprinter Sakura and has very nearly as much quality as his illustrious brother. He was given a lovely introduction by Barry at Newbury in January and then went to Kempton where he won easily. He has done plenty of schooling, and although he has a lot to live up to, he's a very exciting prospect for novice hurdles." So, there's a lot to like about this horse, and I'm very excited about to see him this season.
Is everyone as disappointed as me that Declan didn't do a Nicky Henderson impression when reading that?
I'm a little bit more disappointed that we've spelt the horse's name wrong.
Have we?
That is terrible.
I think there's a rogue U in there somewhere. I haven't said that to be clever. It's just for people's tend to follow. So when you're looking to follow the horses and put them in your trackers, it's EUR anyway, but it won't stop how quick the horse goes.
I accept full responsibility for that, I think, but I am, while somebody else is talking about their horse, just going to check what Rixie sent over, and if he sent it over wrong, we could look at the production value. For those of you listening on the podcast, we've now got it spelled correctly, because that's the way we roll.
The good news for me and Don is Sam's probably going to get the boot after that. So it's going to be a little bit more work floating around.
No, Sam's internet's too good for him to get the boot.
I'm clinging on with the good broadband, that's all.
What people don't realise is I'm scrolling back to try and find out when Rixie sent it over, but he sent the horses over such a long time ago because he genuinely thought we were recording this last Monday. Giving me a load of flack saying, "What's the running order? What are we doing?" And I was thinking, "You're a week early, Rixie."
Literally a week early.
You got 14 days for that, Rex, in the normal course of events.
Yeah.
Confirmation that Declan sent it over spelled correctly, and I made the error. That is the pilot that I am.
I wouldn't expect anything else, Rixie. Good work, mate.
Good stuff.
Copy and paste is easy to do these days, to be fair.
Good stuff. That's our hurdlers to follow then. We managed 3 novices. I think that's impressive. I think that we've gone down that route.
Yeah.
Goodness me, a harder task than the out and out open horses. As far as the chasers go, then just looking, I think it's unsurprising that we've got a few novice chasers in there, because I think that is, for me, they're the exciting ones. They're the ones that that have shown a bit over hurdles last year. And then you're like, right, I want to see them over fences. I want to see what they can do. Can they live up to those pedigrees? I'm going to kick off actually with a horse that was a novice last year, but is going to step into open company this year in the 2 mile division. It's a horse of Paul Nicholls, is called Grenadine. That is spelled right as well, thankfully, but I did have to check it. Grenadine, who ran, I thought, very, very well in the Grand Annual last year. He progressed pretty sharply in his 3 starts over hurdles. He looked very well handicapped when he started off in the Sphere, and he finished up winning a novice before going to the Grand Annual. He wouldn't have won the Grand Annual. I think he was rated 150 in that contest. But he didn't get a clear run. I think he'd have finished a little bit closer. But just for a horse with that relative lack of experience, Grand Annual is a great race for horses actually coming back, having already run in the race, and experience can count for a good bit in that. So I thought he ran well given his lack of experience. It's more about the horse, about the man that trains the horse, Paul Nicholls, and the fact that he's talked about him going to Exeter for the Holden Gold Cup, and then possibly developing into a Tingle Creek type horse. Now, obviously, Deffy was fantastic last year when winning the Tingle Creek, and he's going to be a huge force again this year. Still a young horse. It's a very strong division, which I've already touched upon, given the likes of Shakan Possoir and Altior. But you'd imagine that Shakan's not going to make his way over here until Cheltenham, and I just wonder if this horse can develop from a handicapper into a Grade 1 performer. He's a very, very good jumper of a fence. He's deadly accurate. He jumps at pace. And I think that he can be another one of those Paul Nicholls 2-mile chasers, the likes of Masterminded, Dodging Bullets, even who've won a Queen Mother Champion chase for him. Not forgetting Politolog either, who caused something of a surprise, I know, and won a Tingle Creek as a young horse. I think more where he's trained can mean he can develop into a really classy performer. Whether or not he can be uprated 170 round Altior, I really don't know. And I think that's obviously getting ahead of ourselves. But I think starting off at Exeter and then going on from there, he could be a horse to side with and to follow going forward. I'm a big fan of his. For all he didn't quite get the job done at a decent anti-post price for me in the Grand Annual. But Granatine is my 2-mile chaser stepping into open company to follow.
Do you think Tommy could step up and trip then? Because he has run over further than 2 miles of hurdles, including at Exeter. Do you think, like, if as you say, like, in order to be definitely a champion chase contender or even a Tingle Creek horse, he's going to have to be into the high 160s at least, right? So if he doesn't get to that mark, do you think he could step up and trip and maybe find a niche there?
I'm not convinced. Just he jumps so well at 2 miles going at pace that I don't know. He'd want some settling if he stepped up in trip as well, I think.
Because it's a big one, isn't it? To make that, like, you don't see that many Grand Annual horses making the jump into champion chase. Like, it's the 2 mile division. It's like the Staying Hurdlers division. It's a division that doesn't tend to change so much year on year. The same horses tend to come back again and be players for a couple of years in a row, don't they?
And they tend, in recent years, the likes of Altior, the likes of Sprinter Sacra, the likes of Masterminded, they have been top quality novice hurdles into Grade 1 novices over hurdles, immediately into Grade 1 novice chases, I know. But Politolog didn't necessarily fit that bill when they finally worked out his trip. I just think Paul Nicholls could be the key. He knows a good 2 mile chaser when he sees one. And the fact that he's nominated those 2 races, and I really liked the horse last year, made me go, interesting. Could he be that good? He's got to find £10 straight away to even mix it with those sorts of horses.
But are we looking at a brittle Queen Mother Champion Chase division? Altior's going to be 11. Deffy Desai has always kind of struck me as a horse who would be brilliant at the Ryanair trip. Shakan Possoir is made of chocolate. See, the horse is always injured, seemingly. So, it could be open to a horse who's kind of maybe a Dodging Bullets kind of year. And if you've got like Dodging Bullets, I know he's probably not everyone's favorite champion chase winner or whatever, but he was a dynamite jumper, just like this lad. And, when you're traveling at this speed, jumping at this speed, at this level, that is a massive weapon to have in your arsenal. So, maybe it's not, a mental kind of consideration at all. Like Altior, I'll be taking him on. You've got to take an 11-year-old on all day in the champion chase, don't you?
Mm. Yeah. And Tom, to be fair, the handicapper felt that he was off about an early 130 mark when he went over fences for the first time at Ascot, and then by the end of the season he was 150. So he improved 18 in just 4 starts over fences last year. So you go and win the Haldon Cup quite comfortably. You sit nice and comfortably in the mid 150s, and then you kick on from there. And the fact that he ran so well in a Grand Annual and jumped at speed in a big field of gnarled old handicappers, was only beaten 4 or 5 lengths at the line to a couple of Irish sort of job horses, then that was an encouraging effort, really, and more to come from him, surely. Yeah,
I hope so. It's hard to speculate what sort of, for a Haldon Gold Cup. I think the fact it's been nominated, he'll be a very warm order. But Paul Nicholls got a great record in the race. I'm not saying he's going to develop into a champion chase horse, but when it comes to Cheltenham. But the Tingle Creek, I think, will be really interesting if he wins at Exeter, if that's where he goes.
The Haldon Gold Cup is interesting as well. Sorry, not to harp on about Grenadine for all the while, but it's a kind of a stairs race, isn't it? Like what's it, 2 miles, 1.5 furlongs on soft ground at Exeter. It tends to be a horse that gets more than 2 miles that tends to win a Haldon Gold Cup. Just anecdotally in my head.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. Politolog won it, didn't he? Am I getting my? But then he was campaigned as a 2.5 miler initially, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they wanted him to be a Gold Cup horse, and then he finally came back and won over 2 miles. Yeah, I don't mind that he does jump really well at pace, and he looked an out 2 miler last year. But yeah, if he wins a Haldon Gold Cup, you say, well, he does stay further. But I still think that that's the way they're going to campaign him this year, and he looked that to me last year. Let's kick on because we're still early on in the chasers. Rixie, you're up next. You're another McManus horse now for a chaser, are you?
Yeah, another McManus horse. An under the radar owner who hopefully nobody will notice. So that'll be good for the viewers. But yeah, look, I couldn't help but get away from Sporting John, just because I don't think he did himself justice last year at the Cheltenham Festival. He obviously he was second favourite in the Ballymore behind Envy Allen, who was odds on, but he finished the race distressed, and he was also lame behind, I think. So he just didn't show his worth that day. And you know what he did he ran 3 times before that last year. He ran twice at Exeter and he ran at Ascot, and he just looked to get better and better each time. And I think what he did at Ascot, okay, it wasn't a graded race or anything, but the form I thought was pretty solid. He beat a horse of Nicky Henderson's called Pipe Smoker by 6.5 lengths. Giving him £8, and he absolutely hammered him, to be honest. He jumped well, a little bit airy at times, like chasing would suit him. But what I love about this horse is he races a little. He's got a lovely way of going. He can travel well, but he's just a little bit behind the bridle. You'll always kind of see in his races that there's for a couple of strides he looks like he's going to be in danger. But once he gets a squeeze and gets a slap, he really does respond, and he's got plenty of pace, this horse. I think Sam was quite keen on him last year for the Supreme Novices Hurdle, if I remember. And I think he can mix it between 2 miles and 2.5 miles. Will be the way to go with him. He's a son of Getaway, who's probably one of the new kind of exciting young sires in the National Hunt game. And on his Distaff side of the pedigree, he's from the family of Oscar Whiskey, that good horse of Nicky Henderson's a few years ago. He was bought from Ballycrystal Stables. It was run by Matthew Flynn O'Connor for 160,000. And I know he disappointed at Cheltenham last year, but I just can't get away with what he did at Ascot. The time and the sectionals and the form, everything about that race, just stamped him as a top-class novice hurdler to me. So, look, we'll see. I'm excited about him. I really am excited about him. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what Sam thinks about him this year, given that he was quite keen on him last year in the Supreme Novices Hurdle.
Do you think he needs to go right-handed?
I don't think he does. There was a couple of stages at Ascot where he actually jumped left-handed. But I think the horse who was leading him that day, was it Master Debonair of the Tizards? He maybe did jump a lefted few and he followed him. I think you're right to bring that up because that's what his record suggests. But no, I think we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt for the moment. But
sure.
If so, there's always Punchestown for him. We can wait till bloody April or May to get a winning bet off him. So yeah, there you go.
Well, look, where do you think he'd start off? Because I was thinking, is there that graduation hurdle at, the Coral used to sponsor, the one at Ascot. Other bookmakers are available.
No, but by the sounds of it, he's going to go novice chasing.
He's going to go novice chasing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, do you remember, Sam, at the start of this week, this was the chasers to follow?
Yeah, but I just want one or two, quickly retracking and retracing my steps. 1 or 2 horses do go over hurdles and make their comeback there and then go over fences, don't they? Oakley being a case in point at Wetherby last week.
Yeah, they are. I feel bad.
I don't think I've dug myself out of that hole.
Tom was laughing his head off there, and I feel very bad now. But yeah, sorry for being a bit of a prick. But yeah, I couldn't help.
Never apologise for that, Rixie. Never apologise for that.
But no, yeah. Look, I think you're right to bring up the right-handed thing. I'm not sure where he can start. By the sounds of it, Philip Hobbs said he's going to start low key. So, he ran at Exeter twice last year. I think that's a track that's pretty local to Philip Hobbs. Maybe he can start him there. I think a horse of this quality, I think he can start wherever he wants, really. So, yeah, we'll play it by ear.
That could definitely be your Twitter description, couldn't it? At Hawkwing 2002. Sorry for being a bit of a prick.
I think plenty will agree with that anyway. So there you go.
Wow.
Sam,
you wouldn't have exclusivity on that handle, Rixie. That's for sure.
Well, judging by some of the comments I get on Twitter, I might dispute that, to be honest.
Talking of Getaway, Sam?
Yeah,
yours is another son of Getaway.
The big Getaway, yeah. My novice chaser, not hurdler to follow. Really, really nice horse of Willie Mullins. Is another Mullins horse, I'm afraid. So a bit Mullins heavy here. Obviously an inexperienced hurdler, really, but was sent to the Ballymore. I thought that was quite a big ask, really, just off the back of a wide margin win the previous time. And I was just really impressed with how he went through the race. He's just a great, big, relentless galloper in my eyes. Anyway, I just felt that he hadn't quite filled the frame yet. I think he got Envoy Allen off the bridle a little bit, turning for home. He missed the third last out that day, which didn't help him. And he was a bit of a spent force in the straight as Gordon's sort of second string went past him along with Envoy Allen. But, the time figure was exceptional. I just love the way that he went through the race, really. I thought the hurdles looked a little bit of a nuisance to him. I can't wait to see him jump a fence. He looks tailor-made for me for the staying novices chase. I don't know what we call it nowadays. It's not the RSA, is it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, they've stopped, haven't they? I don't know. Go on.
They have stopped. So just the fact that he was pitched into that company, I thought it was a really, really interesting move, really, from Willie Mullins, because on the bare level of his form, nothing suggested that he was up to winning a race of that nature. Yet he was ridden very aggressively. I know a lot of people have said that it was a stop-start gallop or whatever, but the time figure suggested that it was a pretty good, relentless gallop throughout. There's some good horses, including Sporting John, that were off the bridle at the top of the hill for whatever reason. I thought it was a tremendous run from him. I can't wait to see him with a bit of cut in the ground, in a real galloping track over 3 miles, over fences.
Don, by all means, comment on that, and then take it away with your horse. Yeah, look, the big Getaway is a gorgeous horse, Sam. And of course, yeah, he is as the name suggests, by Getaway and big. So yeah, jumping fences would be the thing that he's built for, really. And actually, easy work. He finished second in the Ballymore hurdle. He was close to my list, but I couldn't put up another Jigginstown horse. Given that, as we will see later, it's full of my list. So I said I'd leave easy work out, but he's a horse who could. He's another chaser in waiting. He's another RSA or whatever it's called these days type horse. So yeah, like that Ballymore hurdle, obviously with Envoy Allen winning it and Sporting John in behind, it's a race that's going to, as it often does, throw up lots of clues to the future, to the high class.
Just while you mentioned Envoy Allen, sorry, just I feel it's important just to pick up on that. What we expecting him to be campaigned towards this year, as he's going over fences? What do you think he'll be the intermediate trip? Yeah, interesting. That's what Gordon says in the Racing Post yesterday. I think yesterday or today. Yeah, he said if he had to nominate a race that he was most likely to go for, he said the JLT. I mean, you kind of think staying, don't you? You think Gold Cup ultimately there for RSA chase this season, but Sam Crow was an intermediate chaser, and that's the way he rolled. So, yeah, you'd think definitely up to 2.5 anyway, and see how he goes from there.
And that Ballymore, Tom, just a quick line. Chambleur came out of that race and jumped brilliantly the other day and won, and Decor Andley, who's another winner out of that race as well. There haven't been too many horses that have come out and run out of it, so it's already starting to work out quite well.
Go on, Don, your horse.
Yeah, Manila Indo. again. I might have even put Manila Indo up as a horse as well last year. I think, yeah, I just, I can't watch the RSA Chase again. It just is one of those races where.
I could watch that all day, to be honest. That yeah. From despair to ecstasy in the space of 2 fences. It was bananas.
I actually watched it again, Declan, during the week. And I just saw a Champ at the top of the hill, and I was going, does Champ really win this? Seriously, to make sure he still wins it. There was some ride with Barry Garrity. But in fairness to Manila Indo and to Rachel Blackmore, she was riding to beat Allaho and Manila Indo. They just went too fast. And I think, I mean, who knows, but if Manila Indo had jumped the last better than he did, I think he still would have won, because he just lost all momentum. And again, Rachel was looking to, she probably thought she had Allaho beaten as long as she could just get over the last. She got over the last, and then who knew?
Do you think he's a bit? Do you think he's a bit idle, Don, as well? I know he made a meal at the last, but I thought when he got running again, I thought he kind of idled. It wasn't that he was tired, obviously, but I thought it was a mixture of both.
There is a bit of when Champ came by him, he got going again, isn't it? You're right there, but no, I don't think he was idling. I think he was just tired, and to have run the two of them, it was some race between the pair of them, and it looked like they had it between them. In hindsight, it's easy. They cut each other's throats a bit, probably, and set it up for a closer for Champ. And Champ, obviously, he's a top class staying chaser. But no, I like he won the Albert Bartlett, and he ran on strongly. I think he's a stayer, and he jumps fences well. He's only running in 3 chases. Like, that was only his 3rd chase in the RSA. And he's, the fact that he's won an Albert Bartlett, he's run so well in the RSA chase. He's still young enough, 7 going 8, and he's with Henry de Bromhead. I just think he's got so much in his favor. I know that the 3 mile staying Gold Cup type category, it's a hot category, but I think this fella, I just think he's often an underrated horse. He was underrated for much of last season. I thought his run against Lorena was very good. He jumped super that day, and then people kind of crabbed his win at Navan when he beat Captain CJ in that beginner's chase. But again, the way, and he was long odds on to do it, but the way that he stayed on again once Rachel Blackmore went for him after the last, he's just a classy horse who it probably hasn't really got the recognition that he should have got so far. But
don't you think in a way that's because he's an Albert Bartlett winner, and a lot of the time Albert, particularly, it was a big price one, and Albert Bartlett horses are considered, because they're not quick enough or classy enough to go for the Supreme or the Ballymore. They're just they're slow enough to go for the potato race. They often don't get the credit.
Yeah, maybe, but Gold Cup winners come out of the Albert Bartlett hurdle as well. And yeah, like I just think he's underrated, Tom. Like, he was a 50-1 shot that day. He went to Punchestown, and he was a big price again, given that he'd beaten Allaho in the Albert Bartlett. They made him a 5 or 6-1 shot, and he went and won that year.
I think I know why last year, Don, sorry cutting across you, is why people didn't kind of take to him what you're saying about, he's always kind of underrated. There was a real sense last year that he was being trained for one day, and that was Cheltenham. And I think that probably showed in his 2 runs before Cheltenham that he wasn't finely tuned. And, why would you finely tune a horse for in January when the big day is in March? Yeah,
well, obviously that was his target, and it was more the RSA chase and then on to Punchestown afterwards. That's the way definitely Willie Mullins trains his horses. Gordon Elliott was training his horses a bit more like that last year. Henry de Bromhead the same. You kind of train for Cheltenham, but then with Punchestown in mind as well. And he's that type of classy horse who could have done both. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of him. He's only run. He didn't have that many runs over hurdles as a novice hurdler. Only had 3 runs last year over fences as a novice chaser. And yeah, I think there's loads of mileage left in him. I just think he's a really, really exciting staying chaser.
And thanks for mentioning Allaho, who was the sickening Mullins bingo victim when he didn't run in the JLT, which nobody will ever understand.
No.
Right, Don, straight back at you with dark horses. So we come to our dark horses. So these are horses who perhaps we've never seen on the track, perhaps we've seen very, very little of, and those that certainly won't be on your radar. We've got 3 of those for you, and Declan's also come up with a horse. Don, take it away if you can. Who's your dark horse this year?
Yeah, I think Barbary Master, he's not as dark as one we've never seen before, or one trained somewhere else, not in Britain or Ireland. But I think we're going to see a lot more of him. He ran the other day actually at Punchestown behind the aforementioned Sky Lane.
This is Barbary Master, who is I think I've spelt this one right now because I did do it initially wrong. Sorry, Don, take it away. Barbary Master. I had the order a little bit out of kilter with
there he is. Yeah,
Barbary Master. Go on, Don.
Yeah. No, he's a hurdler who should improve for stepping up and trip. He ran last year in bumpers. He stayed on well to win a bumper at Navan. And then last time he made his seasonal debut at Punchestown in the race that Sky Lane won. And look, Sky Lane ran out a really impressive winner. But Barbary Master, I suppose what impressed about him was how well he ran, given that he didn't jump that fluently. He's a horse that 2 miles you would have thought would be on the sharp side for him. And the way that he stayed on, it was on kind of goodish ground at Punchestown. So definitely favouring speed. As we move into the season, the ground is going to get more testing. He handled soft ground well. He won his bumper on heavy ground at Navan. So that obviously augurs well for stepping up and trip or for encountering stiffer conditions, or both, maybe to step up to 2.5 miles on softer ground, because I just think that stamina is going to be the key to him. And as he gains in experience, his jumping, his hurdling should become more fluent. He's a horse. He's probably not going to be contesting the very top races, not yet. Anyway, I'd say Noel Meade will have a maiden hurdle in mind for him, maybe stepping up a little bit in trip. Or I wouldn't mind him even going on easier ground and staying at 2 miles for now. But I'd say stepping up in trip would be the thing for him. And yeah, as he gets more fluent in his hurdling, he should improve. And Noel Meade's horses, I know he does do well at this time of year, but they're in absolutely scintillating form, both on the flat and over jumps. So I think wherever Barbary Castle runs next will be a time to catch him, and probably in a maiden hurdle, and then again maybe as he steps up in class later in the season.
I was going to just pick up on that. Noel Meade's already halfway to last season's total. He's absolutely flying. Can he ever get back anywhere near the top, do you think, or is that's just gone? Do you think with Mullins and Elliott?
No, I don't think it's gone, Tom. Like he's been at the top of the tree. I remember Patrick Mullins said a couple of years ago that he remembers looking back when he was growing up and looking at their horses and thinking, we'll never beat Noel Meade. And like he couldn't imagine a time when he would get when Willie Mullins would train more winners or accumulate more prize money than Noel Meade. And like he's been at the top, Noel Meade, since the 70s. Like he's an unbelievable trainer, and to have the longevity that he has had and continues to have in his training career, like he's a phenomenal trainer. He's had 2 Group 3 winners on the flat there in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, look, it's like anything. When somebody's at the top of the tree, be it in football or in racing or any sport or in tennis or golf, you can't imagine the time when they won't be. But you just don't know the way things work.
And Sam Turner's just been a top tipster throughout. He's untouchable. Your horse, Sam?
We're on dark horses now, Rixie, just so I get this right, yeah? There's no strength in the rumour that they asked you for a dark horse and you put the lad up from the Lloyd's Bank advert, didn't you? But anyway, we've got one of Joseph O'Brien's here, which I know little or nothing about. That's the disclaimer. Horse called Bustleton, who's a French recruit. And my good friend and colleague, Brendan Powell, who's over at Joseph's yard, a valuable ally for Joseph where these jumpers are concerned, suggests that this horse might pay his way this winter. So I'm going to take absolutely no credit for this. The horse that they got from David Cottin, to coin Stevie Jones, or David Cottin, if you're from the West Midlands, a 3-year-old by Master Craftsman, who won very snugly in a big field at Auteuil on very deep ground. The fourth's already come out and won a chase by 4.5 lengths to give the form a little bit of credence. And he's schooled very nicely and looks a proper machine, so I'm told. So Bustleton would be my dark horse for this year.
Very concise, lovely, and I'm not sure what we can come back with on that because, like you, we know very little about him.
Exactly. I can wax lyrical about he's being a fantastic specimen, athletic, rangy, with loads of scope, but I just don't. I haven't got a clue.
Do you know where he's starting off, Sam, or where he's going to go? What he's going to do?
No, not as yet. I just got the name and did a bit of research myself. But put it this way: there weren't many horses put up this year or last. But Fakir Duderé was one last year, and he didn't do too shabbily. And this lad's been one of few to make its way to me on the WhatsApp group. So I hope Brendan doesn't mind me putting him up. But yeah, there's a real sense of quality about him, I think, and I think they've been really, really impressed with what they've seen so far. So he's only a 3-year-old, so I'd imagine juvenile hurdles and probably one of their better ones.
That's how it works with these unknown horses. You want to get a message from someone and it work out well. And as you say, with Fakir Duderé last year, he did pretty well. So from one Joseph O'Brien inmate to another one, the dark horse who boasts quite a CV. He won a Punchestown bumper on debut in December 18. He then went on to finish 3 lengths behind a certain Envoy Allen on his second ever start in a Grade 2 bumper at Leopardstown. He then ran in a Group 1 at Punchestown before being fitted with a first-time hood and winning his maiden hurdle. He was sent off at 14-1 for the county hurdle last year. He's rated 148. And Rixie's dark horse is...
Oh, I feel like an absolute bell now for putting this up. Right. This was my thinking in terms of dark horse. I think this lad could go to the top over fences in the novice chasing department this year. But on the rating that I had him running to in the county hurdle, I thought that was good enough for him to run 3rd in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. But if he ran 3rd in the Supreme Novices Hurdle, I think there'd be kind of an awful lot more hype about him. So this is where I'm potentially trying to wriggle out of this blunder of a dark horse. But look, I do like him Bittert. Unfortunately, I don't know Joseph O'Brien and I don't know anyone else working in the yard, apart from maybe Kevin Blake, who I swap emails with every now and again. But all I hope is Sam sends 1/3 of his fee for this to Brendan Powell, and then we can all get on with our lives. But look, I do like him Bittert. I was really impressed with what he did on his hurdling debut at Naas last year. So much so that I actually got him added to the Supreme Novice Hurdle market on a separate exchange, where I backed him at a 3-figure price, and halfway through the season I was looking silly going, what are you doing backing a horse for a Cheltenham race after one race? But to be fair, he got his act together as the season went on. And look, I think after he won at Naas, I think just Joseph and Gigginstown, they got tactics wrong on this horse. They switched him to front running tactics. He's a horse who wears a hood, and he's probably just expends a little bit of energy when he's out in front with no cover. But they dropped him back into the field. I think he had a mid-division spot in the at the Dublin Racing Festival in a handicap there, and he ran a lot better. But then he went to the county hurdle at Cheltenham, and while they rid him a little bit more forward this time, he showed that if he did run in the Supreme Novices Hurdle that year, he wouldn't have been out of place. So look, he's a son of fame and glory. He's a half brother to 145 rated horse of Nicky Henderson's, called what's the Precious Cargo, I think is the horse's name. And I just think he's going to be, that lovely old term that we love to use. Anything he did over hurdles was going to be a bonus. So I think that is the case with this lad. He's obviously in good hands with Joseph O'Brien. Gigginstown obviously by a good horse. He's got a decent pedigree, and I'm looking forward to seeing this horse over fences. The only thing I would say about him is I really want to see this horse in some nice ground, because he's such a lovely mover, and he's the distaff side of his pedigree's got quite a bit of flat blood in it. So, whether the heavy ground of your Naces and your Navins and so on are going to suit him this year remains to be seen. He could potentially end up getting himself handicapped for the Grand Annual. But he's a horse I like, and he's quite a dark horse. So I'm looking forward to him.
Yeah, he's really gone under the radar in all those Grade 1s, hasn't he?
To be fair, he was beaten out of sight in those Grade 1s, so maybe that saved me a little bit.
Yeah, he's been hiding away. He's been hiding away at all those minor meetings like the Cheltenham Festival and the Dublin Racing Festival.
All right. Well, look, none of us have got the extensive WhatsApp group you've got yet, Stan. Give us a break.
We did promise Rixie we'd give him a load of stick for this, but
now,
look, if he goes on and bolts up over fences wherever he goes and happy, I backed him in the county hurdle, Rixie, before the race, thinking he was very well treated, and I'm a huge fan of his as well. So he's one of my horses to follow this year, definitely.
Good stuff.
And as you know, Rixie, because you were obviously paying close attention early on, there's 10 winners come out of the county hurdle already.
Yeah, it looks like a good race, doesn't it? Like, even you've had horses come out of the county hurdle that won champion hurdles in the past as well. That's not going to happen here, but I think 1,000 Stars, you've had good horses who have won it, and did Rooster Booster, did he win it as well?
Rooster Booster, yeah. Top weight in the county hurdle. I'm hoping Saint Bois follows him through.
Yeah, exactly. So, it really was a dark race, wasn't it, to be fair?
I am going to go for Lord of Carac, who is Ollie Murphy's horse, who made his debut at Uttoxeter a couple of weeks ago now. Actually, less. It was all of 4 days ago. I didn't see the race live. I'll tell you exactly what I did. Because normally I would be out with Racing TV visiting yards at this time of year, doing season previews with trainers and getting a list, very lucky to be able to do so, of horses to follow. But obviously we haven't been able to do that. So I rang Ollie Murphy and said, can you give me a couple of horses to follow? It was as simple as that. I didn't see the race live, but he said, I'd be happy for you to talk about Lord of Carac, who I think could be very nice. He ran at Uttoxeter, and go and watch it back. He was very keen early, which he was. He bumped into a horse of Dan Skelton's called While About Oscar, who was far too quick for him and too professional. Lord of Carac was pretty keen early on in the race. He jumped really well, except 2 out, and he was a bit clumsy at the last. And I think he'll come on a bundle for that. I got the impression he wasn't fully wound up for it. He's not out of a point field. He didn't run in bumpers. He looks a really nice novice hurdler, 5-year-old, rising 6-year-old, son of Marteline. He had the pace for 2 miles, just not as much pace as the winner, Wild About Oscar. I put a lot of stock in what Ollie says when it comes to horses to follow, and in particular horses like this. They obviously paid a bit of money for him. Ollie's dad's a fantastic bloodstock agent, 240,000 euros he cost as a 3-year-old. He's trained a lot of good horses in the Whately colours, and I think Lord of Carac could make it into a very nice horse. It wasn't me sat watching Uttoxeter going, I like the look of that, but that's how it works, isn't it? Incidentally, the other horse he mentioned, which I think is worth mentioning for all it's not an official one to put up, and you can't find it on the Racing Post yet, it's called Tamar Bridge, who is going to run in the Max McNeil colours. Hasn't done anything yet. Will probably run in a bumper towards the end of the year and then go novice hurdling, he said. So he's worth just keeping an eye out for. I think that's Tamar Bridge. But I thought, given we've got a bit of form to go on with Lord of Carac, he is the horse I would shamelessly put up as my dark horse to follow. Happy?
As they say, lad, it's not what you know, it's who you know in this game.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And that's why I'll always be a failure, unfortunately.
It's not true. It's not true.
It is a bit, yeah. No.
Would I hopefully we'd be counted as acquaintances now? Are we friends now? Or is this is just professional?
Colleagues.
Yeah.
Colleagues. Oh, yeah.
Acquaintances.
Yeah.
So as all you boys go to the top, you can hopefully drag me up with you.
Yeah, we'll pull you along with us. We'll happily.
Thank you.
Right, and then thanks to Declan's hard work last week when he thought the podcast was happening, he then said, I've got a jockey I want to follow. So we thought it would be nice to give you a jockey or a trainer to follow this year. Obviously, a young jockey normally, or a trainer who you think suddenly going to have a very good year, not necessarily based on what happened last year, but could just be a bit under bet going forward. So Rixie, kick us off, because it's sort of your division. Your jockey to follow is Millie Wanacott.
Yeah, well, she is. I'm a big fan of Millie and what I've seen of her so far. I think she's very good. Unfortunately, she's actually out injured at the moment. So I hope she's resting up well and can get back onto the track quite soon. But yeah, she came to my attention at Fontwell last year on St. Stephen's Day, or as you plucky Brits call it, Boxing Day. She rode a horse there called Rusamy River for Neil Mulholland, and I was just looking at her go around. I thought, this lady can ride. She is very good. She's got a good seat. She presents her horse as well to obstacles, and she's under the tutelage of Neil Mulholland. Most of her rides have come for her, or have come for him, should I say, Neil. But she's also ridden winners for Chris Down, Henry Oliver, and L. Jefford. I'm sorry there, I didn't get his first name, but she's very good. She was seen to great effect last year on a horse called Finger on the Switch a couple of times. She just looks, I think she just looks natural on a horse. I think, a lot of the top jockeys in the flat and the jumps, when they look natural, they tend to be good. And she just looks natural to me. I think she's still claiming £7. I hope that's right, if not 5, but she's definitely mega value for that, especially with a good man training it. Providing her with a good career in Neil Mulholland. So yeah, Millie Wallencott is definitely a name to follow in the game.
And that's it. It's not just about, of course, it's about ability, but also with a specific angle here on the fact that her rides might be slightly under bet going forward because people haven't quite realised her potential. James Willoughby, who Sam and I and Don work with quite a lot, he a few years ago he had all these lists of jockeys who he thought were under bet and good value to side with going forward, and that's a good angle in. I am going to stick up a trainer because, to be honest, I was trying to find a jockey and wasn't sure, but I do think that Tim Vaughan is going to be worth following this season. Now, he's not in good form. So before you go on the Racing Post and be like, what are you at? What are you talking about? They're not flying at the moment. That said, all of his recent runners have all been chunky old prices and a few of them have gone close. But his strike rate this year isn't very good at the moment. We went down on Racing TV to see Tim last year, and it's worth pointing out what he's done, because 4 or 5 years ago, he was flying along, going really well. The first few years of his training career went brilliantly. And then he had 3 or 4 really quiet years and disappointing years. And it's because his horses were getting consistently sick. Now, Tim's yard's a lovely yard, but it's right sort of down in the dip of a valley. And he was finding that his horses were ill at the same sort of time every year. And he felt it was because of the spores in the air. It was sitting down in the valley. And what he's done is he's basically spent 2 years moving his yard up to the top of the hill at his yard. And he's got a beautiful setup now, big open barns right at the top of the yard. And I think up until 2 years ago, he had a little upturn, started training more winners. And again, last year, both had similar strike rate last year and the year before and similar amount of winners. And that was when half the yard was complete and half of it had moved up. And now I believe he's at the lockdown. I saw him at Chelmsford when he trained a winner there on the flat, actually. And I think he's now got everything ship-shape, moved up to the top yard, and he's ready to roll up there with much more airflow. If he gets a season where his horses are consistently well, he could have a lot of well-treated horses in there. He's a very, very good, very capable trainer who's been blighted with sickness in his yard at the same time every year. And I think there's this idea that, well, he's struggling because of other reasons, and it's because the horses haven't been well. And I think he could just be worth, if you see him start to have a few winners, pick up on that, because I think a lot of his horses might be under bet going forward. And it wouldn't surprise me if he has a very good year, a good strike rate year, and a good profit and loss year as well. So I will be looking out for his horses when they start getting on a bit of a roll. And I think there could be a few well handicapped horses in there for Tim Vaughan. That's me done. Donn McClean, a young jockey for you.
Yeah, it's Conor McNamara, Tom. I liked him for a little while, but what impressed me a lot was he had a big winner at Fairyhouse in January. He won the Dan and Joan Moore Memorial Chase and Charlie Stout for Shane Nolan, and he had a double on the day. Actually, he rode Wolf Prince to win for his boss Gavin Cromwell. He won the opening hurdle race on the day, and I was chatting to him afterwards about big day for him, big day, big winner for a young jockey. And all he wanted to talk about was Brex Drago, who unseated him and in one of the later races. So he went, look, I was just, maybe too aggressive on him, and if I just sat a bit, and so he was just the way that he didn't want, like, Charlie Stout was a big winner for him, and it was brilliant. I think it was only his second double of his life. So it was a big day for him, but he was consumed by the loser, the one that got away, the one that he should have won. And it's just a great attitude. Look, he's all the things that Declan was saying, like he's got all those things, to me anyway, to somebody whose experience of riding races is severely limited, but he looks like he's got a good judgment of pace. He's good over a fence. He's a son of Eric McNamara, the trainer, brother of Emmett McNamara, who won the Derby. So he's well bred, and Gavin Cromwell, he's in a very good place with Gavin Cromwell. I think he rides out for Willie Mullins as well. So all the right people are using him. He is ridden for Joseph O'Brien as well. Like he's riding for a lot of the top trainers, and he claims £5. So I'm not sure how many more winners he has with £5. I would say not too many, but it's a big thing that he's claiming, and there's his attitude, I think, to go along with the fact that he's well able to ride and he's getting the opportunities now. Look, Jonathan Moore is Gavin Cromwell's #1 jockey, but Conor McNamara comes in, he's using Keith Donoghue as well a bit now, but Conor McNamara comes in for a lot of those rides for Gavin Cromwell, and I just think that he's kind of bubbling under, and it could be a season where he just explodes and becomes more recognised and kind of gains. Look, there are lots of good young riders in the weight room in Ireland, and the most difficult thing they say is getting on the horse, is not riding them. So given the opportunities, he's one of those good young riders who once he gets if he gets the opportunities and gets into a rhythm, and he is getting opportunities, but just to start could build momentum, and he definitely has the talent to exploit the opportunities when he gets them.
And that's it with the young jockeys, isn't it? It's all about them getting on the right horses, and all of a sudden they can take off. And Ben Jones did it in the UK last year and had an absolutely phenomenal season. You're going to the UK shores, Sam, for another young rider?
Yeah, young Welshman, Jack Tudor, who is probably from Rix's book of dark talents. Everybody knows about Jack Tudor, really. Been around for a couple of years. He only rode his first winner, to be fair, Uno Mas at Fakenham a couple of years ago. So he had quite a stratospheric rise. Obviously, there's a Welsh national winner in there as well, which is great, courtesy of Potter's Corner, who he's unbeaten on, 2 from 2, and could give him an interesting ride in the national this year if he gets that far. Just the 35 career wins, but 10 have come this year, including a nice winner on the day of we're recording this at Exeter on Kitty's Light. Just a very patient rider, someone who rides light as well. I think his lowest weight that he's carried in the last sort of 12 months has been 9.7, so he can do those light weights. And his main governor, Christian Williams, likes to sneak them in off bottom weight in these handicaps. So I think he's immoral, really, for that £5. I mean, it's giving it away, to be fair. Tactically seems very astute. He's obviously got a great person to shepherd him through these early parts of his career as well in Christian Williams, really good experienced rider himself who enjoyed some fabulous days, and he's making it as a trainer. So there's plenty of positives really behind young Jack Tudor. I think he speaks pretty well, good judge of pace, seems very calm as well in the saddle, doesn't look to panic. I think he's a bright young talent.
Yeah, and I think Christian Williams could have a really good season as well. He knows how to target some handicaps. He's been very successful at doing so. Just a few questions we've had in, quick fire ones. I know you half answered Brian's question, Declan, on So Royale, but he also said Great White Shark, too good for McFabulous in the Stayers. McFabulous, we know, is going to be targeted towards that. Great White Shark, I mean, goodness me, absolutely romped home in the Cesarewitch, a third in succession for Willie Mullins. Is that where we think she's going to be campaigned?
Oh, I'm not sure. We'll see. But look, obviously, what she did at Newmarket was very good, and she, even though that was 2 miles there that day, she was under the pump a long way from home. So she does look all stamina. I just find this division at this time of year impossible, really, to be honest, because, and even in the long term, who knows what horses can go chasing and then not work out. And then if they go back hurdling, they can totally change the complexion of the race. Paisley Park was probably on nobody's radar the year before he won it. I think Thistlecrack wasn't in the betting for in most bookies for the race the year that he went for it. So it's just it's a very hard race to get to grips with at this time of year. I'd say if you fancy one or you've got a really strong one, you think it's overpriced, don't leave anyone put you off it, because it is don't let a big price put you off, because it is a division where in recent years, if evidence is to go by, that you can hit a big price anti-post winner at this time of year. But it's hard for me to have a proper kind of conclusive look at that race at this time.
Obviously Paisley Park, nobody would have expected what happened to him last year, and Liz Nagoroska, who was being campaigned for a Pertemps initially and then didn't get in because didn't qualify and then went and won a stairs. So there you go. Another question: can Rachel Blackmore win the Jockeys title? Don, I feel you should answer that.
Why not? Absolutely. Like, she's as good as any of them, and she rides brilliantly. Really, like, she's so good. Even in small race around Kilbeggan there the other day, and she just always does the right thing. She's patient. She sits. She's brilliant over a fence, and she's got the recognition now that she deserves. She's got her big winners as well, her Cheltenham Festival winners, and she's in a great house with Henry de Bromhead. So yeah, look, she's doing brilliantly, Tom, and why not? Yeah, every chance she can be champion.
Will she get the amount of rides required with the yard? She should do, shouldn't she?
Yeah, well, she gets outside rides as well, Tom, and she's in demand. So, and Henry de Bromhead's obviously it's a very, very strong yard. Like, it's kind of the ideal setting, really. You have a strong yard behind you, and then you're in demand outside of your good yard whenever they don't need you. So yeah, she's got an awful lot in her favour.
And lastly, Sam, you can answer this because you haven't answered one of these additional questions. One in on Album Photo, right at the top of the betting for the Gold Cup, looking to win 3 years in succession. Is he the obvious one? But just to enlarge that on, because I'm interested in this, are you happy with how he's likely to be campaigned? As in a bit of a, we'll see you a bit, and then we'll see you on Gold Cup Day. Is that satisfactory enough for you, Sam?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. I don't really see a problem with it. I know that's the trend and the way that we've gone recently a little bit. I suppose it started with Best Mate in some respects, this very specific target training, and that sort of crept into national hunt racing and perhaps flat racing a little bit as well, that these horses are sort of wrapped up in cotton wool and we only see them on specific occasions. And a lot is made that it's difficult to ask these horses to keep peaking. And I get that. I also get that it is quite good if they are being target trained. It's quite good to see all the top horses there on the day. Now, unfortunately, 1 or 2 horses were target trained for the Queen Mother Champion Chase last year, and that never panned out. So I can understand as well the school of thought was, if they're well, let's run them. And there's 1 or 2 trainers who do very well with that sort of school of thought. The Nigel Twiston Davises of this world, who, if they are well, we'll run them week after week after week. And, you just don't know what's around the corner, especially in this day and age. I wonder, given that the current circumstances and the climate that we're in at the moment, whether we will see these horses a little bit more, because nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Campaigning for a Cheltenham Festival in 6 months' time or 5 months' time, whatever, seems a bit of a daft exercise, a bit of a folly for me, because we just don't know whether it'll actually be going ahead. Anything can happen in the next 5 minutes, let alone the next 5 months. So hopefully we'll see these horses out running, and there should be a little bit of pressure as well from owners to run them, because at the end of the day, they're still paying 2-3 grand a month in training fees, and there should be an opportunity for them to see their horses as much as they can. And as I say, there's no point thinking what might happen 6 months down the line at Aintree. We saw this year there wasn't an Aintree, so let's hope that they're all campaigned a little bit more aggressively. And there's also probably going to be the opportunity in 1 or 2 jurisdictions, probably Ireland and Britain, that we'll see a few more of these races put on for them as well that we didn't necessarily see in the spring. So races, hopefully more graduation races to help the novices a little bit more, build up a bank of experience. And as we've seen 1 or 2 rule changes and tinkering with the rules to extend the novice status a little bit. So all those things help, but let's hope we see these stars. But I can understand, if you've got a horse, and especially when you're a stable that probably got a multitude of horses that could be aimed at these championship races, to be able to pick and choose and say, well, we'll run Album Photo a couple of times and then go to Cheltenham, or we're running once over Christmas, or we'll just we'll just do exactly what we did last year and the year before. It worked so well for us. We'll go to Tremor and we'll go to Cheltenham. Job done.
It happened by accident the first year, didn't it? Because he was supposed to run at the Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, and it was very quick ground that day, remember, and Willie Mullins took him out, and he went straight then from Tremor to Cheltenham. And actually, on the day of the Gold Cup, I think he was only third or maybe even fourth, but I think third choice of the Willie Mullins quartet into the race. So, and then when it worked so well that day, Willie Mullins said, that seemed to work all right. Do the same thing next year, and hey presto, it worked again. So yeah.
Surely as race fans, though, this is not a good thing. You know, look, the owner pays the bills, whatever he can do as he wants, definitely. But, you know, seeing a horse of this quality twice a year doesn't really sit well with me. But, you know, like I don't want to be too critical on Willie or the owner. He pays the money. If he has that horse and he wants to run him once a year, you know, that's his prerogative. But I think from a race fan's perspective, it's a little disappointing. We don't see him more than twice a year.
I think if it comes off, I think that, like with Best Mate, nobody thinks, well, remember how Best Mate was campaigned. Best Mate was a 3-time winner of the Gold Cup. So I suppose if it comes off, it's great. But but I know exactly. I know it feels for me. I'd want to see him. You know, I want to see him in a Lexus Chase. I want to see him in an Irish Gold Cup, etc. But it's not going to happen.
He's actually running less than Best Mate, I think, isn't he?
Yeah. But you know, like if he goes and like he's won 2 Gold Cups now, so he's etched in history as the dual Gold Cup winner. You won't remember that he won a Savills Chase or an Irish Gold Cup in the meantime. It's that he won, and if he wins another one, he's a triple Gold Cup winner, the first and Best Mate.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely get that point of view as well. Just from a race fan's perspective, it's a bit disappointing. But it's funny, isn't it? Willie couldn't train a Gold Cup winner over X many years. Now he'd probably go and win 3 in a row.
No, because Milena Indo is going to beat him this year.
Yeah, I'd say you're right.
Won't stay, mate. Move on.
He saved it till the end, didn't he, Don? He saved it till the end. Right, chaps, anything to add on anything that we've covered? Or we can wave goodbye.
We can wave goodbye. I'm very happy, apart from my blunder earlier on in the pod, that everything's gone very smoothly.
Your answer to the question I just asked you was sublime to make up for all of that. You should be a journalist, Sam, as far as I'm concerned. Good stuff. Don, thank you very much. Declan, thank you. Sam Turner, lovely to hear from you. We hope we've found you some winners. As I said at the top, right now, we've put you up 9 good things because they've... no, hang on. 12.
I think we've come on for this run anyway. That's safe to be assumed.
Yeah, it's early season, Tom, isn't it? It's early season. We're about 75% fit here.
All a bit heavier after lockdown, you know. We're bound to come on for this.
12 horses. That's right. 12 horses, everyone. Thanks, guys, for all of your input. Thanks to those of you at home for watching, and have a fantastic National Hunt season. Bye for now.